So you're laying in bed, scrolling through Instagram, knowing that you probably should be doing something more productive with your time, when suddenly you see a little bit of delicious female flesh. You feel a little tingling down below, and before you know it, you've got your favorite porn site open as the rest of the world just fades into the background.
If you want me to go away, you know what you have to do.
Jerk off.
Jerk off, yeah, exactly.
You regain consciousness a short while later, your stomach now covered in what can only be penis vomit, and slowly you begin to remember all of the things that you should be doing, how far behind you are in life, and how powerless you seem to be to change any of this. If this sounds familiar, don't worry, because it's something that most of us can relate to. But why? Why is it that, especially with porn, the more that we consume it, the more that it feels like we're being consumed? It's because with each new porn clip that we consume, our reward system, specifically dopamine, is being hijacked. In this video, I'll show you exactly what's happening so that we can reclaim our dopamine and instead direct it towards the stuff that we actually want to care about. You know, like goals and dreams and that kind of stuff. By the time you reach the end of this video, while I can't promise that you'll never watch porn again, I can promise that you'll never want to watch it again. So let's begin. Dopamine is responsible for motivation. So most people understand dopamine as just something that our bodies release to make us feel good in response to some sort of reward, which is true, but this is just a small piece of a big picture. Our bodies release dopamine when we see that we've got new likes on that photo we just posted, when we log onto YouTube and see that Nelson Quest has just uploaded a new video, and of course, when we orgasm, which has occasionally been shown to occur after logging onto YouTube and seeing that Nelson Quest has uploaded a new video. But here's the thing, dopamine isn't just released in these situations for the exclusive purpose of making us feel good. It's released in these situations because our primitive brains see these things as rewards, and the release of dopamine is how our brains modify neural pathways to motivate us towards repeating certain actions to get more of those same rewards. Likes on our photos are seen by our primitive brains as social approval, which was critically important in prehistoric times when such approval meant better access to resources, mates, and overall improved chances of survival. Nelson Quest's new video notifications are interpreted by our brains as new important information that will positively impact our ability to survive and prosper. And orgasms cause a surge of dopamine to be released because they are the climax of sexual reproduction, which is arguably the primary biological imperative of the human species. So to say this all again in a slightly different way, our bodies release dopamine to help us learn actions that resulted in a particular reward so that we feel motivation to repeat those same actions to get more of that reward. Porn creates a massive overload of dopamine. So when you see that some people seem to possess incredible drive towards building wealth or achieving optimal health, whereas other people seem to not even be able to get off the couch, this has everything to do with differences in how dopamine is being managed. And so the reason that social media, video games, fast food, and especially porn wreak havoc on our motivation and drive is because our primitive brains lack the hardware necessary to make the sort of advanced calculations necessary to be able to prioritize different rewards. Instead, they simply prioritize the rewards that trigger the biggest dopamine release. And guess what? Porn has been shown to raise dopamine levels to 200% over baseline, which is a lot more than what's possible with enjoyable exercise or really meaningful work. And to put that 200% into perspective, that's just a little bit higher than the 150% increase we get when we eat chocolate, and just a little bit lower than the 250% increase that we get from cocaine. So with this understood, now let's dive into the two big reasons that porn is particularly damaging to our dopamine system. One, porn is a supernormal stimuli. Supernormal stimuli are essentially exaggerated versions of normal stimuli that we subsequently perceive as more valuable. The term was actually coined by Nobel Prize-winning ethologist Nicholas Tinbergen, who observed that male stickleback fish would attack a wooden fish model more aggressively if the wooden fish model had an underside that was painted redder than was possible in an actual real male. And that fake cardboard butterflies with more defined markings were more likely to attract males than real female butterflies with less defined markings. So maybe you're asking, well, what exactly do stickleback fish and butterflies have to do with humans and porn? Well, according to Harvard psychologist Deidre Barrett, in her book, Supernormal Stimuli, How Primal Urges Overran Their Evolutionary Purpose, she argues that the link is actually much closer than we realize. She shows how supernormal stimuli, like junk food, TV, video games, the internet, and of course pornography, can easily hijack our brains. Consider this. In the 80s, when Hugh Hefner and his Playboy centerfolds reigned supreme, porn was essentially just static images in magazines and not really a big problem. Fast forward to today, and porn is now the very definition of a supernormal stimuli. Endless waves of free, instantly accessible, high-definition videos featuring women with watermelon-sized fake breasts and men with horse-sized penises groaning and screaming in exaggerated ways as they engage in utterly unrealistic casual sex acts within the context of fantasy scenarios like the horny babysitter or the lucky pizza man. These heavily exaggerated representations take sex from being a normal stimuli and elevate it to a supernormal stimuli, resulting in a massive dopamine dump, which is exponentially exacerbated by the fact that we don't have to reach further than our own pockets to experience it. Number 2, the Coolidge effect. So when a male rat is placed in a cage with a female, at first they have lots of sex, but over time the male rat gets less and less excited, meaning less sex and a longer amount of time to orgasm. But when a new female is placed into the cage, the male becomes excited again and lots of sex ensues. But once again over time, the rat begins to get less and less excited until yet another new partner is introduced. This process can be repeated again and again with new female partners, and this is what's referred to as the Coolidge effect, which is present in all humans, yes, even females, but that's a topic for another day. So with porn, we're like a lab rat where the seemingly infinite number of porn videos available for free on the internet each represent access to a new partner. An argument can actually be made for how the Coolidge effect can trigger dangerous escalations in the nature of porn consumed, which can wreak havoc on our interpersonal relationships. So what I'm talking about here is how many people start out watching innocent porn, like two people simply having sex with each other and maybe an occasional moan or ass slap, and how that can quickly escalate to needing to watch interracial midget gangbangs to be able to get off. The more porn that we consume, the more it becomes normalized, and the harder it is for us to find porn that gives us that sensation of feeling new, which is how we end up spending more time trying to find the perfect porn than we spend on Netflix trying to find that perfect thing to watch. Long-term porn consumption changes our brains. So when we consume porn, we're triggering dopamine release along a specific neural pathway, and the more porn that we consume, the more our brains are actually reprogrammed to seek out more porn without us even having to think much about it. In other words, it becomes automatic. Studies have shown that this can be particularly damaging within teenagers whose brains are at peak dopamine production and levels of neuroplasticity, making them much more vulnerable to forming porn addictions or really any sort of addiction. So young people, be particularly careful. Okay, so now for the good news. The way that brain neuroplasticity works is essentially use it or lose it. So if we can break the habit of watching porn, over time, our brains will return to a healthy baseline where we no longer experience a massive rush of dopamine motivating us to consume porn whenever we feel sexually aroused. So personally, knowing what I know now and having experienced a lot of these things firsthand, I rarely consume porn, and on the rare occasions where I do, I just stick to the normal stuff. Keeping my consumption at a bare minimum, combined with healthy eating, heavily restricted social media usage, avoiding dopamine-driven video games like Call of Duty and Fortnite, these are all a huge part of why I feel so much motivation and drive towards so many of the things that I do. So my biggest recommendation for anyone struggling with any of this is to just take it day by day. Don't just not consume porn, also make sure that at the same time you're working on productive, meaningful things. I say this all the time, but most of the things that I do are effortless, and properly managed dopamine is a huge part of that.